Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to So That Just Happened, a podcast for those who have lost their person and want to find themselves. I'm Carly Cooper, a single mom, widow, coach, author, and chronic truth seeker. My superpower is finding the funny, the hope, and the silver lining in any shit situation. This podcast is for the purpose of education only and is not a replacement for therapy. If you need additional support, please seek out a trained professional for help with your specific situation. Let's get to it, shall we? Hello, my friends. I'm excited to take you on a journey through the truly special interview. A few months ago, I had the privilege of being a guest on the Genius Alchemist Podcast with Sarah McBride, hosted by my business and spiritual coach, Sarah McBride. We had previously teamed up for an interview on my own podcast called How to Manage Your Energy Around Negative People, where I had the pleasure of interviewing her. But this time, the tables turned and I had the honor of being her guest. In this episode, Sarah and I delve deep into a profoundly personal chapter of my life. We explore how I navigated the tumultuous waters following the sudden loss of my husband after 27 incredible years together. I open my heart to share how I redefined my life's purpose, uncovering love once more, rediscovering my voice, and discovering invaluable life lessons along the way. Join us in this compelling conversation as we journey through my story of resilience, transformation, and the profound rediscovery of myself. My sincerest hope is that this episode will touch your hearts, inspire you, and resonate with anyone who has encountered the challenges of loss, change, or the need to reinvent themselves. Thank you for being here with us. Let's begin this extraordinary episode of healing, growth, and renewed hope.
In this episode, I have the honor of interviewing Carly Cooper. So Carly Cooper is someone that I was really excited about getting on today because she's somebody that's navigated a huge amount of darkness and been able to repurpose her life. And now she dedicates herself to her own podcast. So that just happened. And also recording programs for people to repurpose their life. She's been through some immense things and trauma in her life that we're going to touch on today. And hopefully just by sharing her story, it can help just one person or multiple people to be able to see light after the darkness, after being through some huge life shifts. So, Carly.
Yeah, hi.
To you. Hi. So
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's exciting. And, me and Carly have worked together for over a year as well. And yeah, I'm just going to go right in. And
let's do it. Deep dive. We don't know any other way.
Exactly. And I'd like you to just, speak about the big event that happened in your life. And, obviously being a coach of almost 30 years, you had a lot of tools to deal with things that have come your way. Many people don't, but this is also about exploring the inner work and exploring it in a different way. So yeah, let's go right in.
All right. Well, actually it was 2 years ago, May 20th of 2021. That was the day that my husband, who I had been with for 27 years, took his life because he struggled with depression and mental illness. And he was a light. He was somebody who, showed up in the world. He was a camp director and he was full of life and he was full of light and he made other people feel amazing. And even in his own darkness, he was still somebody who tried to find the joy and he tried to do the work. And there was just a perfect storm of things that took over. This was, it was in the height of COVID. His father had just passed away. He had suffered from multiple concussions. Like there was a lot going on. His industry came to a standstill, as many did at that time. And he was trying, but, something overtook him. And, I don't want to get too heavy into the why of suicide and all of that because, everybody has their own thoughts and opinions about that. And that's really not what this is about. But I believe that something on that day took over. And that's what happened. And I spoke to him that morning. My spidey senses did not go off. And I am somebody who like you said, I've been in the personal growth and development world for over 30 years. I've done a lot of work on myself, on helping others. I'm very self-aware. I'm very in tune. And my spidey senses did not go off that day thinking, okay, today's the day. I knew he was struggling. I knew he was in a dark place. But, when I spoke to him that day, I didn't think. And then an hour later, I found him. And so that's really when this new part of my life, there was a chapter that closed in that moment. And then at the same time, a new chapter began. And I didn't know it at the time. I couldn't articulate it at the time. Obviously, I wasn't like evolved as I am now because of it at that time. But I knew, because I think of all the tools and the strategies that I've learned over the past 30 plus years and that I've taught and I've immersed myself in and embodied, something kicked in. And again, it wasn't immediate and it wasn't as clear and I couldn't articulate it then in the way that I can now. But I just knew innately that I had to do whatever it took to be okay. Because at the time, my son was 14. I had 2 dogs. I now had a life to navigate on my own. And it was a life designed for 2, but for 2 adults to navigate. But now I just intuitively knew, okay, it's all me. And I had to do whatever I had to do to get better. And I'm not somebody who, I've definitely had my victim moments. I've definitely had my really, right. Like I've definitely had my look up to the heavens and been like, really? Like, can you fucking test somebody else? Like for a moment, because, so I've definitely had that. And I still have that. And I still have moments of like, just not wanting to be an evolved person who knows better. I kind of want to be like a lot of other people and just like stick my head in the sand or just like numb out. But I can't stay there for very long. I just can't. Believe me, there are many days where I wish I could. Because sometimes it's fucking easier.
Yeah.
But it's just not who I am. It's not how I'm wired. And I think it's because I've done so much work that I've changed my brain.
Yeah.
But
also that on that where you're saying, I'm not wired in that way. It's important that for people to know that maybe there was a time when you would have been a different way. So I think we do have those innate impulses of, I've got to get to the bottom of this and what's going on and, this shit that's happening. But I think having that drive and then building upon it with all your tools and changing your brain is also possible, for others who haven't got it so instinctively and intuitively as you have.
Absolutely. And look, even though I'm self-aware and evolved and have the tools and strategies, like that day changed the game for me. Because for the last, 25 years or whatever, I was using more of the mindset stuff and the shifts and the tools around business, around self-doubt, around, work stuff and career and all of that. My relationship was great. Like I didn't feel like I really had to do the work then. What's shifted for me now and why I continue to like dust off the tools and learn new ones is that now, I've been in a new relationship for the last 10 and a half months. But as you know, I've worked very closely with helping me shift in this way. But I've had to do a lot of new work and new rewiring of the brain and getting new tools and new strategies around a different area of my life that needed attention.
Yeah.
And so I think that, to your point, there's always work to be done. There's always growth to be had. And we just have to look at at least start with one particular area of your life where you are consumed, where your thoughts are going to all the time, whether that's work or romantic relationships or any kind of relationship or finances or whatever it is. Look at the darkest area of your life right now. And we could have multiple ones, but what's the one keeping you up at night? That's the one I say pay the most attention to first, because it's going to have a ripple effect on all the other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's always darkness to work on.
Oh, absolutely. And, for a point that we've discussed in the past is this is real time happening. This is your life. This is not, let me just learn some tools, some techniques, let me rewire my brain, because a lot of people go into this personal growth, self-development, and I think you have two camps. You either have the ones that the pain has become unbearable, so it's forcing them to shift, or you just have people who want to explore. But for you, this was not about exploration. For you, you were catalyzed into something huge, some huge darkness in your life that you just so happened to have previous tools to work through. But it wasn't real time. The tools wasn't to be applied until that catastrophic event that happened that changed your life forever.
Well, I think the difference is when you're just reading to read or learning to learn, I think that you get a surface understanding of it. You get concepts, you get strategies, but until you actually have to put it in place, it's just, at least for me, words and ideas. It's until you put those words and ideas into action. But like you said, in real time scenarios, that's when the shifts happen. Yeah. Because otherwise it's just like, okay, like I've had to reread books that I read when I was in just that learning phase, but I was just like, it resonated enough, but now I'm like, no, now I actually have to pay attention and apply. And so then it becomes, like you always say, an embodiment. Because when you embody the work, that's when the change happens, because then you're actually living it. You're testing it in real time against real situations.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a big part of the work that I do with clients is there's no point in me showing you strategies. There's no point in me providing tools or coaching in a specific way unless you're prepared to go out there real time, apply them so we can see what comes up on an emotional level, how it affects you internally. And then that's how we start to, that's when the real alchemy occurs. So, yeah, I mean, totally agree. And, to add to that, what it feels really important is this is real time, but it's also completely out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
You, as you say, you didn't even have an inkling what was going to happen that day. It just happened. So it was totally outside of your control. You did your best prior to that with your husband and to help him. A lot of people in this world of exploration of, ancient wisdom, esoteric, healing arts, what I find is the ones to me that I admire and respect the most are the ones who've been through real-time darkness, and then they become way showers for others, because there's a huge movement right now in willingly stepping into the darkness. So whether that be by plant medicine. You can drink all the ayahuasca ceremonies in the world. You can go in all the dark caves for as long as you want with sensory deprivation and, face your inner demons. You can go on extended fasts as long as you want. However, you always know at some point that's going to come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and it's a choice. It's a choice,
and the choice, because I admire people that step into that. I've done it myself, for many years during the past. But for me, I know personally, my monumental growth spurts were when I was thrown into a situation and I didn't know. Having to face the depths of my soul and not knowing, when is this going to end? Will it ever end?
And how will it turn out?
Yeah. So for me, this is why this work is more important. So going through what you've experienced in this lifetime, that to me is the real alchemy.
Yeah. And it shows you what you're made of, right? Like,
Yeah.
and again, there's no judgment either way. Like sometimes this stuff breaks people, and I understand that. And I don't think anybody can judge that, because I think it's based on, how you were raised and the kind of environment you were raised in, and how you were supported or not supported, or loved or not loved in your life. And I think that has such an influence on how you navigate forward. It doesn't mean that you can't change that, but it takes a real inner strength and a real desire. And the hard part is, and I've said this 1,000 times, but the only way through is through. But through is really hard, even for the most evolved people, even for the people who have done the work, even if it's because we're all human.
Yeah.
Right. And just because, I've immersed myself in this world doesn't mean I'm the person levitating on a mountaintop, like at all. Like I can't even fucking meditate. Right. Like, so I'm not claiming to have it all figured out. But I would say for me, there's always been a drive, and I'm just a seeker. I'm a seeker of truth. I'm a seeker of wanting better. I want the rainbows and unicorn life, even though I know that it doesn't exist, but that's always what I'm striving for. And so for me, there's no other choice than to sit in the shit, work through it, feel the hard stuff. Like, again, trust me, there have been many times where I'm like, I don't want to do this. There are days I don't choose it. But again, because it's just who I am and how I'm wired, I don't know any other way. And so I think that if there are people listening to this who feel like, I can't, it's too hard, like I get that. I understand it. It's not for everybody, and I'm not saying that like my way is the only way, but it was the only way for me. And because I can't sit in the victim space for long. I just can't.
I totally get that. And, you made a really important point of you don't want to do it. And that's the difference. We have the type of personalities where even if you don't want to do it, you face it and you do it, and sometimes as much empathy and compassion in the world that we have, it can be hard when you witness other people who just avoid to the point where it's like, I don't want to move into that. Well, you will never be able to get through, because as you say, the only way out is through. So you've got to sit in the uncomfortableness. You've got to move through that. So, yeah. So I'd just like to ask you the question as well. When it happened, obviously, it was traumatic, it's painful. But what was the hardest part of having to deal with the aftermath of something like that?
I knew for me, somehow, some way, I would be okay. I have a son who at the time was 14. Now he's almost 17. The hardest part is knowing if he's going to be okay and how to navigate that and how to address it or not address it with him, or how to read the room in terms of, is he okay? Is he not okay? That's been the hardest part for me because that's out of my control. And I know for me, I have the tools, the strategy, that drive to not stop until I am okay, and to do all the things. Like, I am the person who will do, shy of ayahuasca, I will never fucking touch that, but because I'm just too scared of, like, the physical
the
ramifications. Yes. So I'm not saying it's not good and doesn't work. I'm terrified of, the fluids that come with ayahuasca. But I will try anything or that feels right for me, or I will like invest in my health and wellness. And I know that I will get the help I need, but I can't control other people's journey. I can't control how they're going to react or respond or deal with things. And that's also like in my life, like in relationships, in family dynamics. It's like, because I'm like wired to like stop at nothing, most people aren't. Most people will not start at anything. I will stop at nothing. They will not start at anything. And it's really frustrating and hard and scary, because what's come with this trauma for me is the need for everybody to be okay, which again is futile and impossible, and I can't control it and whatever. So that's been my biggest work too, is to, allow people to navigate their own shit in their own way on their own time. And that's really hard. But I recognize that my need to step in and control and want is for my own safety and my own peace of mind. It's not necessarily helping them. It's helping me. So, that's been a lot of my work, but that's the hardest part for me, is just allowing others to do their thing and live their life and suffer in their own way without intervening and getting involved and taking it on. And I'm still working on that, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, of course. But then also that's why you do what you do. And that's why you coach people, inspire people, why you have a podcast to explore all of these themes, because you help people repurpose their life. So born out of that frustration is your desire to help, your desire to offer people a roadmap through the darkness that you've already been through and experienced. Because I know for me, I've worked with many mentors throughout the years, and, I've mentored many people. I've been inspired by many people. I've worked with lots of teachers. But the ones for me that I've always been drawn to, the ones, as we discussed earlier, the embodiment. So the ones that actually embody what they teach. And for me, that can only be through real-time experience. I want somebody that understands me and gets me. I don't want to work with someone that has been on a course, so then they're regurgitating the information from the course or the books. I just simply don't want that. I want someone that's applied those tools to their life. They've changed their life. They've walked through the fires of transformation, and then they're able to then show me some of their medicine in that way. So that's what makes you great at what you do as well.
Thank you. Well, again, I don't have the ability, like, truth. I don't have the ability to be anything I'm not, or to be inauthentic, or, to talk about something that I haven't gone through myself. Like, I can't lie. I just can't. So, and I think that that's why for the first year, I would say 18 months, I didn't do anything. Like I didn't teach, I didn't coach, I didn't post on social media. Like what I call it, I cocooned. Like I really like kind of shut myself out because I knew like my first instinct is when I learn something or I read something, I want to share it with others. I want to teach it to others.
Mm.
But I knew innately that this was new stuff that I had to learn and embody first before I could teach it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was ever going to teach it or if I would ever have the words to articulate what I was going through. But then, through working with you and figuring stuff out and a lot of stops and starts and whatever, you were the one who told me to do the podcast, and it was a brilliant idea because I think the biggest shift for me was I wanted to shift out of coaching and
Mm.
more into teaching,
Mm.
because what also came with the trauma for me was a heightened sensitivity to other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas before this, I could coach clients, listen to their stuff for the 30 minutes or an hour, and then detach from it and not take it on. And now, because of, what I call emotional shrapnel that was left over from the trauma, and like, I'm more sensitive to other people's stuff. I just even energetically, I get more exhausted, and I'm a highly sensitive empath, so I naturally take on other people's stuff. So the podcast was a way for me to share what I wanted to teach and still help others while protecting my energy.
Mm.
And so, and even this program that I'm working on, Repurpose Your Life, it's a blueprint of all the things that I've done to get to where I am now on the other side, but even prior to that. But it's going to be more in a teaching rather than a coaching format. So, there'll still be the lessons and the action steps to take. So it's not just listening, it's actually implementing, but it's a way for me to get my message out there and to teach what I feel is helpful and what helped me, but also in a way that honors what I need and to protect myself. So that was the biggest shift too.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And yeah, I remember the day when we worked on it, and you knew that you wanted to be out there because you had so much information that you could share and so much knowledge that would help other people through their own darkness, but you were just not focused on being the coach that you was for all of those years. So yeah, I mean, so far your podcast has been great, and
Thank you.
so many nuggets of wisdom to help so many people through different facets of their life.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do you feel is next for you? Because I know you touched upon you're in a relationship now, and that shows as well, because you with your husband, it was 27 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time. It's the majority of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you completely honored that process of grief and healing, because I was there with you.
Yep.
So you completely honored that before you then, decided that you were ready for a new relationship. And now you've been in this relationship nearly a year.
Yeah, it's almost 11 months. So yeah, a year in July.
So you completely got your life back on track. You've took control. You've launched a podcast. You're in a relationship. What do you feel is next after this?
That's a good question, and one I ask myself almost daily. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think what I want is to have like a maintenance for a while of just like maintaining, and I'm still learning. I'm still feeling challenged just by life and the new relationship. And I'm a single mom. Like there's still just life to be lived. And I also find that what's different now versus then was that I was very driven and ambitious and, type A about my career. And now I'm just kind of like, I want to have impact, but my ambition is different. And it's not so much about like, I need to get this many clients and make this much money. It's more just like, what's more important to me right now and more sacred to me right now. And this may sound totally cheesy, but is like maintaining inner peace and calm and like just almost like having no drama. Again, not realistic, but I'm trying for that. I just want to like kind of coast for a while and just like do what I'm trying to do and like trying to like touch more into the feminine energy of things. And because I've been operating from a masculine energy perspective for so long, that these are all things that are new for me and that I still want to truly embody. So I think that's the work for me right now, is to do what I'm doing without the pressure and the hustle and the grind and the results attached to it. And just almost like, instead of me seeking it out, for something to seek me out, you know?
Yeah.
And
To be
just,
aligned.
yeah, and just continue to just see how it unfolds.
Good answer. So, you mentioned a point that you touched upon was about being in your masculine energy, and you've had to, you want to explore more of feminine energy because you've been in this masculine space. And, considering what you've been through, to me, that would be really normal. You've lost your husband. What do you have to do? You have to go into a results and action driven energy, because all of a sudden you're having to pay the bills, you're having to deal with insurance policies, you're having to deal with all of the tasks that he would have previously dealt with. So it makes sense that you've had to move into that masculine energy temporarily.
Yeah. And that's why, for me, I just dove into all of the business side of death very quickly, like right away. I put my blinders on. I asked for help because, believe me, there was plenty that I didn't know and understand. And that was overwhelming, like insurance and claims and forms and banking and mortgage and everything. Like, I mean, I did stuff before we divided and conquered, but there were certain things that I handled and certain things that he handled. And now I had to handle it all. And so I knew for me that I had to spring into action right away to get that over with. And it was almost a really, again, for me, a good distraction. And so I just put my head down and my blinders on, and I just dealt with all of it at once because I needed to get it over with. And I knew that if I left it because I didn't understand it or I was afraid of it, then I would just keep putting it off. So for me, I have to take immediate action on things that are difficult for me. And then I knew that once that part was done, then I can get to the other parts of grieving and feeling without the panic and the anxiety attached to it, because I have all these pending tasks or things that are just overwhelming me. So that was my approach, was to just dive right in and get it done.
Which makes sense why you would want to do that anyway, because that's part of you taking your power back. That's part of you repurposing your life. That's part of you being able to manifest and create and align with the life that you're living right now.
And I also see it with I've seen it with clients. I see it with certain people in my life, that when things are overwhelming and daunting and scary, when they're left untouched because of fear and because of overwhelm, it to me, it's like a slow drip of torture, because it's constantly on your mind. It's constantly the weight on your chest. It's constantly the discomfort in your stomach. Like it affects your mind, it affects your body, it affects your spirit, it affects everything. So for me, I would rather face the fear and the discomfort short term, rather than stretch it out longer than it needs to be there. Because for me, like the actual, like, and I'm an example and you're an example of your own stuff and your own darkness, that like, if you were to think about, like, if someone were to tell me the day before this happened that this was going to happen and this is what my life was going to be, if they would have sat me down and said, okay, this is going to happen tomorrow and what your life is going to look like moving forward, I'd be in the fetal position and I'd be like, I can't handle that. I can't. What are you talking about? Like, there's no way I will be able to handle that. And yet, when you have no choice and you're thrown into a situation, you have two choices. You have a choice of whether you're going to deal with it or not deal with it. But either way, you're going to feel pain. And I would rather feel pain temporarily. I mean, there's lingering, of course, and there's always going to be feelings and whatever, but the real gut wrenching, don't think you can do it pain, I would rather get that over with and feel that so then I can start to heal. Because I believe you cannot heal until you feel and do.
Yeah.
Not just feel, but you have to do. You have to do something to move yourself forward, to move yourself out of it. And by avoiding, and believe me, I get it. I get the need to want to avoid. And I'm not saying like something traumatic happens and you need to spring into action 5 minutes later. It could be a week later. It could be a month later. It could be whatever it is for you. But there needs to be something that is moving you, even if it's an inch forward. Because otherwise you are just creating your own suffering.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And that point you made about, the feeling element and then the doing, because people think it's about we feel it to heal it and then that's it. There's no action. And, something in, with clients that I work with where we can do all the healing, all the feeling, but I'm like, it's time to do. You've got to take action. And then within the taking action anyways, that's the experiential, the feedback, real time. And then you can move forward to the next stage, and so on. So, yeah.
Well, I even feel it in, my relationship, and it's an amazing relationship, but it's not perfect because nothing is perfect. And instead of like looking at it and being like, oh, this is shit and this is not meant to be, and I look at like the stuff that's coming up for me or for him or both of us as, oh, this is an area that I still need to heal. This is a wound that still needs to heal. It's not a bad thing. It's like you said, it's evidence of what we still need to work on. And as long as you're with somebody who's willing to work on their shit and be patient while you work on your shit, and you're supportive and you're growing and evolving together, I think that's healthier than not facing your stuff or pretending like everything is great when it's not for one of you or both of you. And it's not even that it's not, the whole thing isn't great. It's just, oh, this is an area that needs exploring.
Yeah.
And I think that being with somebody who allows that and is there for it and is willing to do their work too, I think that's the healthiest relationship you can be in.
Absolutely. I remember, I think it was a teacher said to me once, we don't get into relationship to be loved and to love. We get into the container to heal the wounds that stop us from feeling the love. So being in that container helps us remove the barriers to love, because as the wounds come up, the more we heal, the more triggers we heal, the more we remove the barriers to love, because innately that's what we all love.
Yeah.
And for me, there's a fine line. So there's you've got the twin flame kinds of notions, and some of that can be quite toxic, where it's stay in these real narcissistic, abusive, toxic relationships because you've just got to heal and move beyond the trauma that's in those, relationships that other person's providing under the guise of it's your twin flame. But then you've got the other camp, which is any sign of a trigger and they're out the door. There has to be the happy medium of the understanding of, okay, there's going to be triggers, but it's our job to heal and move through, because that's the evidence. Okay, there's something for me to work through here.
Yeah.
And, that's, to me, that's what love is. It's the commitment to growth. It's the commitment to moving through your triggers, as long as, each person's respectful.
Yeah.
And, there's boundaries and so on.
Yeah. And to hold that space for each other, it doesn't always, sometimes it's like, I'm going to go through something and he'll be supportive, and he'll go through something and I'll be supportive. And sometimes it's, we're both going through something at the same time, and we just need to honor that. Look, I'm almost 50. Well, I'm in my 50th year, but I'm 49. And at this age, getting into anything, there's going to be baggage on both sides. There just is. I don't think anybody, if they're being honest, goes through life unscathed somehow, some way. And so, you have to show up for it and be willing to be open to doing the work and allowing them to do the work and calling them out on their shit. And if they're not doing the work, and being open to you being called out on your shit, but again, in a loving and supportive way, not in a, abusive or overly critical way, but in a way that's no, okay, you're doing that again, or whatever it is, But I just think that it's a constant, whether you're in a relationship or not, the most important relationship is the one with yourself. So I think that everybody needs to be doing the work and exploring their own stuff. And if you're, and this is what I did with you for that first, I don't know how long it was, probably 5 or 6 months before I even thought about dating again. And you really had to help me through that, because I couldn't wrap my head around it. When I met my husband, there was no internet. So,
Yeah.
and you're like, go on a dating app. I'm like, what?
That was your homework. That was your homework. Let's see what comes up.
The worst homework I could have ever gotten in my entire life. But, and I had tons of resistance, and I did a whole podcast on that, so I'm not going to bother repeating it. But, it was a real, I had to do a lot of clearing, and just a lot. I just had to do a lot, and I still have to do a lot. Truth, I do, but I have come a tremendous long way. Absolutely. Thanks to you. So, yeah.
Well, that to me, I've got many clients in many fields and that do many things, but you are someone to me that has had exponential growth. It's been so huge, and from where you was to where you are, which is, another reason why I wanted you to share your story, because not everyone's going to have the quantum leap that you did. But if they could just pick up a few snippets of information and some hope and inspiration, then maybe if they're navigating that darkness in a similar way, through loss, grief, even a partner who didn't, pass, but is still there, but they're not together anymore. It's, all of those feelings. This to me is, who you're here to inspire, amongst other people. Which leads me on to my next question.
Yes.
I've never asked you this question before, by the way. In all the conversations we've had and all the coaching we've had, I've never asked you this conversation. I've never asked you this question in any conversation. So, being a truth seeker, being someone that's always looking for growth, which, you've clearly stated you are, and I know that to be true. Have you found a greater meaning to what happened to you that day?
That is a good question. Look, I don't think it was in vain. I think that there's always a reason for something. I think it was for me to continue to do different work on myself, to force me to face some things I wasn't facing, to feel more, to find my voice. Because even though I thought I had been doing all of that, but I'm a different version of myself now. I'm not completely different, but I'm a different version. I feel like I'm a stronger version, and I've always considered myself to be a strong person. But there's a difference. I was strong in some ways, and now I'm stronger in other ways. And I think it's really about using my voice and really advocating for myself and speaking up and teaching others to do the same. Because I think I would have just continued on, doing what I was doing, and it was fine. But I see that there was still a lot more growth to happen, and it forced me to face a lot of that. And so, it's not something that I asked for or am grateful for necessarily, but I am somebody who also finds a silver lining in everything. Again, not necessarily right away, but I find a lesson and I find a meaning. And I think it forced me to face a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily facing before, and to really step into who I truly, truly am meant to be. And I can't fully define what that looks like yet. I think that it's, again, going to be an evolution, and I'm going to continue to figure that out. But I have made tremendous strides.
Oh, absolutely. Tremendous strides. And yeah, I can understand why you feel like that. I can understand, why you feel it happened to you, because you could handle it. You were then ready to change your life as a consequence of what happened and find your voice and help other people navigate through that darkness.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing journey.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing it with us today.
Well,
So where can people find you? So your podcast, or, about your work, what's the best medium for people to find you?
so my podcast is pretty much the most consistent thing right now. So you can it's called So That Just Happened, and you can find it anywhere you find podcasts. So Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever else, Podbean. That comes out as of now every Wednesday. I've debated whether to do it as frequently or not, but for now, it's every Wednesday. My website is thecarlycooper.com. For now, that's just a place where you can listen to my podcast. I am working on a program. The working title right now is Repurpose Your Life. And when that comes out, then you can go to my website and learn more about that, or I'm sure I'll talk about it on the podcast. I am on social media, but I have to admit, I'm not like super consistent, because that's just, again, I'm trying to post when I feel like it, not when I feel like I have to. But I am on Facebook, Carly Cooper. I'm on Instagram at Coach Carly. So if you don't want to get super overwhelmed with a lot of social media, come visit my platform, because it's not. But I'm there and I'm present, but I just, I'm trying to, this is, again, part of the new me, is trying to be in the flow and not feeling the pressure of like, I have to post every day, and like, what am I posting? Okay, so I'll post me like sitting outside. Like, I don't know. Not that that's bad, but I post that when I feel like posting that, is my point.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I agree. We're on Facebook and things like that. I'm exactly the same. I post when I feel like posting, as opposed to I'm going to get so many posts done per week So being in flow when you feel inspired. So we're aligned in that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank you. I'll put all the
Thank you.
details as well. I will put all the details in the description so people can reach out if need be. So
amazing.
Thanks, Carly. I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, we will reconvene next week as usual.
Can't wait. Thank you. All right, my friends. Thank you so much for listening to this So That Just Happened podcast. I really hope you found value in this episode and that you're walking away with at least one golden nugget that you can implement or feel inspired by. I would be so grateful if you would share it with one friend or family member who is committed to moving forward and transforming their life. Make sure you subscribe so you can catch every new episode, and please leave me a review. It would mean so much to me. Also, follow me on Facebook and Instagram at @CoachCarly. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.